Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to a brand new episode of the podcast. This week, I wanted to invite Michelle on. Now, Michelle was passed on by Chris once again, and we were able to talk about some mindset stuff from a retail area manager perspective. So, someone who's worked in the retail space for a long, long time. But I'll hand over now to Michelle to explain roughly what she does and why she does it and that kind of thing. And I hope you enjoy the interview. I'll see you very, very soon.
Yeah, well, I'm Michelle Bugliarella, and I'm in a period of change in my life is how I would introduce myself right now, to say that I've been somebody who's spent 30 years in a quite intense corporate environment where work was pretty much my life. I can't lie, that was the environment I was in. To finish that role, looking to do something different with my life, only to find that Boris, in his infinite wisdom, decided to lock us down. So had a 12-month period where things probably didn't go to plan. But I guess that's like a lot of people. So I feel right now, I kind of reflect a lot of the population. They were probably doing something very different 12 months ago. I've had a very strange 12 months, and coming out of it, I'm probably trying to decipher, what does the world look like for them as an individual now? Is it going to be exactly the same? Has it changed? Has it given them new opportunities? And for a lot of people, has it given them a struggle they've got to overcome? But yeah, me, I'm a hardworking girl who loves to use a mind, to be in work, to help and support people. But he's finding a different way to do that now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. And I think it's, for me, as we were just discussing a little bit before, I think it's one of those things where, and I'm glad you sort of brought out the pandemic as the get-go, because there's been this kind of conscious theme throughout the podcast at the moment. And there will be a point, people who listen to the podcast conveniently, where we don't talk about COVID at all. But at the moment, I think it's one of those things where it's interesting, and I like talking to people about how they've changed, right? So how they've changed what they do, and etc. I mean, you were, should we say, in a retail space, a retail role, and a retail management role previously for 30 years, as you mentioned. I mean, how was that in regards to, was there transferable skills? Was there things that you could take moving forward? Because, as we discussed a little bit before the podcast started, we wanted to cover kind of that backward and forward, and I think there's a misconception sometimes when someone's done a lot of a job, right, or a role where they don't necessarily see the transferable skills, or they may not necessarily believe there is any transferable skills. I mean, what would you say to those people who are like, oh no, I've done this job for years and years and years and it doesn't have any transferable skills?
I would say, sometimes you do have to just have a moment of pause to stop and think and realise just how much you know and just how much you've learnt. I started 30 years ago by getting a Saturday job. So I was at college, I wanted to earn some money, that was very much what I wanted to do, and I got a Saturday job. And what I found in the corporate world was having that Saturday job gave me opportunities. So I knew at that point in time that I then wouldn't go to university. I could see that I wanted a career. And many people would say, well, you just worked on the till at the time. But that kind of corporate environment gives you the chance to grow, learn, work with great people, and develop all of those skills that you're talking about. Now, I think sometimes people get really hung up on hard skills. So do I have a degree in this? Did I do an apprenticeship in this? Do I have computer skills? Can I code? Actually, I think the most important thing in life and the best transferable skills are the soft skills: leadership, communication, problem solving, all of those things that you can take to any career and any business. And I think they are so undervalued at the moment. I see people get really hung up about the fact that they perhaps didn't have the best of education. It doesn't matter. You take what you've got, you can be the best at anything that you want to be. I take my husband as an example. He left school at 14. He runs his own business now. That's because of perseverance. That's because of being hardworking. That's about being a risk taker and seeing opportunity. And I think the career I was in gave me all those things as well. Now, I went from sales assistant to looking after the whole of the north of a retail company. So I looked after 304 stores with a team of 6 who were out there in the field working with me. And that's what corporate gave me. That's what retail gave me, that opportunity. The amount of different roles I did in that business were incredible. So when people say to me, you did 30 years in one company, how could you do that? That must have been so dull. You know, did you not want to move on? I would say I have had such a wealth of experience. I have had the opportunity to do so many things. And also in that kind of business, you can really grow your brand and grow your reputation and build a great team of people around you that allow you to move to the point at which you get that role that you aspire to have.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of the, I mean, a lot of what you're talking about there is like personal branding and how you kind of approach a problem or how you approach a situation. I think it's really important to appreciate, or people who, you know, a lot of people who listen to the podcast are starting business owners. They're people who, you know, maybe into videography, maybe photography, you know, or maybe into something completely different, just business related. And they are sometimes struggling, especially now, especially, you know, as COVID kind of happened. You know, it was a time where people were caught off guard, I think, because I think that a lot of people were in the position where they weren't 100% sure what was going to happen, and we still don't really know what's going to happen day to day to day to day to week to week. You know, like in theory, there's this road out, right, that we're currently following, and it's happening. But you know, I think that, I don't know whether you are the same, but I think I'm quite skeptical on. Okay, yeah, okay, but where's the what if, where's the got you, where's the, you know, where's the oh, actually, by the way, we're having to roll this back now because cases have gone up, or it's actually, you know, and I don't want to admit it's all about COVID, but I think it's an important metric to talk about because it shows a very specific time where people had to, where they were physically stopped from doing what they were doing, right? Like,
Yeah,
because they hit a brick wall specifically, you know, in that
yeah.
respect. So
I think the term you used at the beginning was there's a lot of people struggling right now. And I think it's okay to struggle. And I think in the struggle sometimes comes the best of things, you know, and it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to fail. And it's okay not to know where your business might be going or whether it will work out or whether it will fail. It's okay to be stuck in a rut. What's not okay is to stay in that situation. So it's to recognize you're there and then move forward and do something about it. And if I give you my example, when I left that retail environment that I'd been in for 30 years, where I was full on 24/7, very comfortable, good salary that went in the bank every single month, you didn't have to worry about that, to suddenly finishing, thinking I was going to go on and do something else and the world sort of changed around me. Don't get me wrong, I had a period of time where I struggled to see a way through. And the worst, this will sound hysterical, but just to sum it up for you, I bought myself a car and I was on the phone with the guy, arranging my insurance. And this man said to me, what do you do for a living? Because they put this down on the form, don't they? What do you do for a living? And you know, I spent 5 minutes explaining to him what I'd done for the last 30 years because I felt like a failure, because I was going to have to say to him, at the moment, I don't do anything. That's how it felt to me. At the moment, I do nothing. It's almost like I'd taken all my skills, experience, everything I'd had, everything I'd done, and dismissed it because I was in this period that didn't feel so good. And I think a lot of people can be in that situation because we're massively self-critical. And instead of thinking about all of the best of the things that we've done, all of the best of the things we are, we tend just to look in that one moment and tell ourselves we're just not really very good. So when he said to me, I'm going to put you down as a homemaker, it was horrible. It was horrible. And I got off the phone and I thought, you stupid person, because actually if I was down on that form as a homemaker, and we just discussed that then, and this is one of the things I really believe in, when I was at home and I was doing the garden and I was here with the dogs and I was starting to do a bit of photography, I still gave all those things my all. I still did everything to the very best of what I could do. And I said to you that quote from Muhammad Ali, you know, it's not about what you are in that moment, it's about being the best at whatever you're doing. So when I worked on the till in that retail world, I was the best person on that till ever. When they asked me to go and help out in another store because it needed some support, I gave that 100%. And I think it's about being the best at whatever you do. And sometimes the corporate world makes you feel like the role and the title is everything. It isn't. You could be a CEO and be the worst CEO in the entire world. You could be working in a garden centre tending plants and be the best person in that garden centre ever, with the best plants that are sold to customers who are completely delighted because of the work you're doing. It's nothing to do with what you're called or what your role is. It's, are you giving it your all? Are you moving forward? Are you building momentum? Are you being the best you can be?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's one of those things where, you know, in the creative space, we talk about this a lot. It's like, oh, you compare yourself to others, and I've watched other creatives go through this, and it's like, oh, they're trying to do what I'm doing, or they're trying to do what someone else is doing, or they're trying to do, etc. But the thing is, you need to understand is, I have the rules and the, you know, the certain level of things I can do because I have the time, I have the money, I have the resources, right, to do those things. You don't have the same tools as me, right? So don't try and compare yourself to me. Don't try and compare yourself to someone else, because someone else's values, someone else's, you know, they may want to spend more time with their family, for example, right? I sacrifice a good amount of my time because I'm trying to build a company, right? At the moment, right? That's a decision I've made. But you, if you're not willing to do that, that's fine. That's your decision to make, right? So you shouldn't compare what I can do and what you can do because I've got 12 hours a day or 13 hours a day or 15 hours a day or whatever it is, and you've only got 6. So it's not comparable, right? So the point I keep saying to people, and the point I say to people all the time, is compare yourself to where you were yesterday, right? Where you personally were yesterday, and where do you want to go tomorrow, right? Because that's all that actually matters. If you're happy with your own progression, it's the same using the retail example. I also have a retail background, worked in retail for 7 years, in multiple different companies, not just in one, but retail's retail, to be honest. And you know, for me, the main difference, or the main company like thing that you take, is that customer experience role, that you know, that role of, okay, well, this is XYZ, you know, this is how you treat someone else from a customer perspective. This is how you help them feel like you're caring about their needs, caring about their wants. You know, do you go that extra mile to make sure that they're happy? You know, and I used this example before, but in Greg's example, which was my last retail job, they have a policy which is basically, if you feel a customer's unhappy and is going to leave the store unhappy, you have the power to fix. It's called Fix It Now, but you have the power to fix that problem, right? So whether that's give them a free coffee or give them whatever, you know, whatever it may be, you don't have to go, oh, let me go talk to my manager to get approval. You can just do it. And I think it's a really, and for me, and the reason why I use that example is because it's a very good example of giving people the opportunity, or giving people the power, no matter where they are in the company, to be in the position where they can fix the problem for the people who actually keep you in business, which is your customers, your clients, etc. You know, I mean, have you seen like a similar progression in respect to like your retail journey as well? Or, you know, is there anything which you, as you went up, that were, these skills are things I use every day?
I think the whole, to me, it's about knowing who you are, being really honest, having great authenticity and integrity, and simply that phrase, treat people as you would want to be treated yourself. And that's all people. That's those people that are your peers, that's your bosses, that's the people that report into you, that's your customers. So, how would I feel in that situation? So what impact do I want to have? Do I want someone to go home at the end of the day feeling rotten? Or do I want somebody to go home at the end of the day, whether they be a colleague or a customer, feeling great? And I always wanted people to go home feeling great, because I think most people every day in their life wake up wanting that day they're in to be the best day. Whether they are low on that day or having a happy day or whatever it is, they wake up with the desire to want that to be a good day. When people go to work, they want to do the best they can in work. Now, it doesn't always go the way we want it to, but when you're in a leadership role at whatever level, or when you're in a business, when you own a company, when you're working, whatever you're doing and you're interacting with people, how can you leave that person walking away in the best possible shape? So what have you given them? Have you given them something they can take away with them? Have you just made them feel good? Have you just given them a smile to lift their day? Because if we all did that more, we would all be living in a much better space on a daily basis, to me. Because it's too simple to knock people. It's actually really easy to knock people. It's really hard to stop and think, can I offer? It's like the pay it forward thing, isn't it? There was loads of people in my career that I know went out of their way to help and support me and gave me their time, when now I look back, they probably didn't even have those hours in the day to give to me because they were so super busy. But they decided that that's what they would do. And that's what I've tried to do. Pay it forward. Give the next set of people the opportunity. And do it for everybody. Not just the people that are going to help you out. Do it for everyone. When I used to, you'd walk into a store and you just go and have a chat with the customers in there. You'd just go and see what their day was like. And in doing so, you'd find out how they felt about your retail store, how they felt about your company. Go and have a chat with the person who's, filling up the display. Go and have a chat with the person who's sat on their break. Just talking to people gives you a lot more wealth of knowledge that you can then use to improve things than process or productivity or efficiency. Being a human, leading with humanity, is what gets you where you need to be. It gets you the results.
Yeah, and I also think it allows like that level of comfortableness, because I remember in Greg's when we had like an area manager come in or someone big, right? So this is a big person, everyone gets stressed out, right? Everyone, manager's stressed out, so team's stressed out, everyone's stressed out, right? And it just takes that one or two moments when the manager comes in to just humanize everyone again. It's like, look, it's all good, everything's fine. And just adding that element. And I think it's one of those things, and I'm glad you mentioned that as well, because I think it's one of those things where you also need to understand that you're not owed anything, but you don't owe anyone anything in the same way, right? No matter whether they're a client, customer, whatever it is, they don't, in most cases, you don't owe them anything in respect to, I'm entitled to be successful because of X, Y, Z. You're not entitled to anything, no. So, and you also don't know how this person you may find in the street or may know in the street or may get to know, etc., is actually going to be beneficial to you, or you be beneficial to them, or etc., in the future. So, why would you go out of your way to burn bridges or etc. when, to be honest, also life's easier, right? When you don't have to be like, oh, this person doesn't like me and I'm going to have a conflict with this person, right? There's some conflicts need to happen, right? But it's whether you treat them as a conflict or whether you treat them as a way to learn, a way to say, okay, well, what were the mistakes here, right? What were the issues? What were the concerns? I mean, how did you deal with, like, because in any role, in my business, in retail, when I was working in retail, I imagine as you work your way up as well in retail, things go wrong, right? Things go wrong similarly on a daily basis. Did your way of changing and tackling those things that went wrong change as you, I guess, grew in the company?
Well, ask me the question again, but I'm just going to go back to something you said when you said this big person used to come and do a visit. Isn't it funny? Because I guess in many ways, somebody would have said, I was that big person. I felt exactly the same person that I felt when I was part-time on a Saturday. Yes, I'd grown, I'd learned, I had different skills, but I was exactly the same. And it's that breaking down that hierarchical system of, because you've got a role, you're better. No, you've just got different skills, or you've had more opportunity to learn and grow, but you're actually all exactly the same.
Yeah, and you all want the same in that respect as well, right? You all want the company, in a simple answer, you all, in theory, I would hope anyway, that you would want the company to make more money, right?
Yeah, you want everybody wants the customers to go away delighted, don't they? Because that's what it's about. And then we need to make money and we need to make a profit. But why do we want to do that? Well, we want to do that because we want to secure the future of all those people who are in that business. A business doesn't really exist other than the people. It's not bricks and mortar. It's not a real thing, a business. It might have a name, it's an organization, it's an infrastructure, but the business is the people. So everything you decide to do should be for the people in that business, and everything the people in the business should do is for their customers. And it's a circle then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely. And it's one of those, if something in that circle isn't running smoothly,
yes,
then the rest of the circle can't run smoothly, right? As well.
And you said to me about when things fall down. Well, to me, the key is just to be accountable, to just say it's gone wrong, because then you can do something about it. And I have found in business sometimes people are not transparent. They would rather cover things up because they don't want to be responsible for mistakes. But mistakes are opportunities, aren't they? And I would say in business, all business, whether it be your own or somebody else's, don't cover up your mistakes. Make them transparent, because you can bring everybody on board then to do something about it and learn from it. So when a customer comes in and they've got an issue, you can hold your hands up. It's okay. As long as you tell that customer you're going to put it right, as long as you offer them a solution. Don't be defensive about mistakes. I think, weirdly, in the world we're in now, success is great and everyone wants to be successful and everybody wants to post their very best day, or when their hair looks the most shiniest, or when their business has made the most money, but nobody wants to talk about the failures. But in those
or less people, right? Or less. I think there's now starting to be a resurgence in, look, it's actually not. I mean, I know personally I share whether things go wrong or not, right? But that's deliberate, because I want to show that level of vulnerability, because then when something goes wrong on a shoot, it's not oh my god, this is the first time something's gone wrong for Colton. No, it's not. It's probably the 100th time or the 3rd time that day. And it's more about, how do you fix that problem there and then, right? Is it, okay, let's redo this bit of audio, okay, let's double check these things, or if something did happen, like I had a podcast yesterday, and we were meant to have 2 mics and we only had 1 at the end because one ended up dying. And what did I learn from that? What I learned from that was double, triple check every single battery and every single mic to make sure that it doesn't die midway through, right? So that because there is a quality loss there. But at the end of the day, even with the quality loss, I think the podcast itself and what was talked about was still valuable. And that's why I did my best to still put it out, and I'm still planning to put it out, and I'm still going to put it out, because it's not about, oh, this sounds really good, oh, this looks really good. Yes, they're important. Yes, they're things which you can look at and get better at. But the reality of the fact is, what's being said and how it's being discussed and what's being discussed is actually, and the content itself is actually the most important part. And that's the bit that people are going to resonate with. That's the bit people are going to care about. That's the bit people are actually going to, connect to, in that respect.
People connect with people, don't they? You don't connect with things that much. You might desire things, want to accumulate things, but what you really want to connect with is people. And that, in a way, has been the big missing in not being in the environment I was in previously. But that's really helped me. When you start to see the things you miss and the things about your previous role that you enjoyed or excited you, you start to see what you want to do next in life. So you start to think, I do love being surrounded by a circle of people. I do love the opportunity to see someone with potential and help them grow. I do love making money. You know, all of those things that lead you in a direction of, well, oh, well, what could I do that gives me the things that excite me? Now, in my previous role, not everything excited me every day, but there were certain things I loved. I loved being with the people. I loved spotting people who would grow within the business. I loved the customers. I just loved that personal interaction. I loved to see things looking as good as they could and knowing that people were going to go home thinking they'd done a great day's work. And that helped me see what I want to do next. Now, I didn't wake up overnight and suddenly realise that that was maybe a pathway for me. But the other thing that helped me is sometimes if you stop and think and just let the land settle around you a bit and start to do different things, like I took up photography. I'm not good at photography. I don't understand any of the technical stuff. If I get off auto mode ever in my life, it would be an absolute blinking miracle. But I love it. It gave me a feeling of joy. I'd look at them photos at the end of the day. And you know what was really nice? You know, putting them online and people saying, oh, it's so nice because we don't live in the countryside and you shared with us. And it's those types of things that I never did before because of the work I was in that I'm doing now that have also helped me see what I want to do in the future. So don't underestimate your downtime. Don't underestimate your free time. I mean, I look at you, you know, I see you online and the things you're doing. You know, the other night I was watching you do, I think it was like a time lapse of the moon coming up behind Salisbury Cathedral. And I just think, I would never have thought to do something like that in the past. How many people never just stop and think, what would I actually like to do today? Not what do I need to do today? What would I like?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think you know, I talk about this in content as well, but it's one of those situations where the ideal scenario in business, or the scenario in business where you want to get to, is you choose every project and then you have enough time within those projects to be like, today I don't want to work, I don't feel like working on that, and you can go, okay, fine, I don't need to. Right, you can put it to the side and you can do something else, right, that you may want to do, perhaps, or etc. You know, I don't film every day, right? There's a misconception, or there's a concept in like videography. Oh, your job is really easy because you just get to film, and I mean that's a conversation in itself. But I don't film every day, right? Do I film often? Yes, of course, but it's not every day, right? There's some days where I'm just editing. There's some days where I'm doing podcasts. There's some days where I'm doing this. There's some days where I'm working on my own content. There's some days where I'm working on the business, not in the business, right? And there's this concept of, are you working on the business or in the business, right? And I think it would be probably very similar in your old role as well, because I think there's, you know, obviously maybe as you go higher, but there's still certain things which you need to do that are in the business, and then there's certain things that you're helping to develop the business, you know. And I think that at any role, whatever role you are in a company, understanding if you're helping someone, especially if they're an independent and, you know, you work with them closely, you know, that it's a mutual beneficial relationship in most cases, because if you help them, they're more likely to help you, and etc. You know, I think it's one of those things, and you know, everyone loves win-wins, but I only do win-wins, to be honest.
And it's one of the things I've learned actually since coming out of that corporate world, because just recently I've started to offer some support to people who've got a small business, who may want to put in more systems and processes, may want to look at, you know, setting up balanced business scorecards to help them understand whether their business is successful or not. And it was so interesting that as soon as you get into that world, oh, well, I know so-and-so and he does this, maybe we should give them a ring. And then you start to work with them, and then you offer them something and they offer you something. And I mean, it reminds me of when I was in my previous retail role. I always used to say, build a circle of people around you. You know, choose those people that you love to work with, but maybe are all unique and different with you, and understand what you can give them and they can give you, because that supportive network is actually what makes you successful, because you can only achieve so much on your own. You know, you won't ever reach your potential, I don't think, on your own. So it's the same thing in this new world that I'm in, of of small business, seeing how people connect. It was really weird because I went to speak to an accountant, and in speaking to this accountant, he said, well, maybe you could do something for some of the people that I work with. And it was just it was a really natural conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those things that you choose who those people are through your career, right? And they end up either, like, some of the time you'll work with them, sometime you won't, but you'll gain some level of connection with these people because there'll be people, and there's certain people in your life, and everyone has these people that you could talk or not talk for weeks, and then you could talk to them again a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 7 weeks, etc. And it's like you've just seen them yesterday, right? And those people are the people that will, they will listen when you are having a bad day, right? This concept of, like, every day is a good day when you work for yourself is this not true. I'll tell you right now, it's not, okay? There's this level of stress and this level of, like, constant, you need to get money, you need to get money, you need to get money. No matter how much you have, right? No matter how much you physically have in your bank, there's always this what if. And even when you have, like, projects that are signed off and you know they're going to get paid, you're really like, but what if they don't pay the bill? What if a problem comes and I then lose the project? And you've, like, done half the project and that happens until the money's in the account, right? But the point I'm making there is, like, you're always going to have bad days. You're always going to have good days. But to be honest, you're not going to know what the good days are unless you have bad days, right? Because how would you know, right? Well, you don't have a yardstick, right? So, I mean, I think, like, I know the answer in regards to, like, for me, it would be, like, the people you surround yourself with again, and, like, that team of people. So whether that, they might not actually be your team, but, like, people I call them a team because they're the supportive group around you, and they do the same role that a team would do. But in your advice or your experience, would you say is best for people to do if they're like, they wake up and go, I really don't want to do this today, or etc. In a role where they can't pick and choose as such in the same way?
And I think it's to find within whatever role you do, what is the passion? What is the thing in that day that excites you, and build that into your day. I'm very much like you. There were some days that I would have to sit looking at spreadsheets, working through P&Ls, looking at cost cutting. Where are we going to save costs from in a business? But I always made sure I put some time in to make some one-to-one phone calls, or I put some time in to go and visit somebody in the store, because that is what got me through the day. But we all do things that we don't necessarily like doing. But the other thing with that is understanding the why of what you're doing them for. So even the things I didn't like doing, I understood the value of them. Now, if you don't understand the value of them, go away and find out. And if there is no value in them, stop doing them then. Stop doing them. If truly there's no value in that thing that you've hated doing, stop doing it and find a different way. But with most things, there is a value. Sitting down with those spreadsheets meant that actually we could use our finances more efficiently and effectively, and probably not have to make some drastic changes or drastic decisions, because we'd worked out what we needed to do with the money that we had within the business. So even the most arduous of tasks, and with respect to, the days you don't fancy doing that particular job, or, well, you described the perfect scenario. Surround yourself with good people, surround yourself with cheerleaders, with advocates. The very best of friends are people who mention your name in a room full of opportunities, that don't put themselves first, that think about you. And if you're having one of those days, you pick up the phone, don't you? As with all things in life, if you're having one of those days, you pick up the phone and you talk to somebody.
Yeah, and I think that sometimes even on those days, and I've had it, you feel very alone, even if you're not, right? Like, you feel very disconnected, you feel very this with this. But the best thing you can do from a psychological perspective is just make that message, send that message, ring that person, etc. Because what it's going to do is it's going to trick your brain into questioning itself, right? Like, if your brain's saying you're alone, you're alone, you're alone, you're alone, but then the only thing it's getting from a stimulus perspective is message, hearing someone else talk to you and big you up. It's like your brain's going, wait, no, that can't be true, because like it's going, you're alone, but the stimuli it's getting is saying the opposite, so it can't necessarily like push you down there. And I'm not saying that that's like a catch-all scenario and it's going to be like the everyone has bad days, right? But I think the point there is, if you don't have people like that and you don't have a position, start just reaching out to people. I think you'd be, for me anyway, from the business community side, I think there's a large community of people who would just help people for the sake of helping people, right? I filmed a podcast yesterday, as I said a little bit earlier, and one of the main points in that was people who are successful, people who are, are happy with where they are and they understand where their business. They're not going to care what competition's there. They're not going to care what anyone else is doing. They're going to push those people forward because they know that they don't necessarily need to compare themselves to those people, because if person A is really successful, okay, great, that has nothing to do with whether I'm successful or not, right? And also the concept of successful is going to be different for every person anyway, right? Like one person might say me owning X house, me owning X car is me being successful, right? Also, I would argue, if your goal is to do what you want for a living and have more freedom and control over your own life, but also be able to live financially, that could be a level of success as well. Personally, for me, my level of success was I don't want to have to answer to a boss, right? It's different when you're working with a client. That's close, in my opinion, that's closer to a partnership, right? You are partnering together to you offer them a service that they otherwise couldn't have, so they come to you to partner up to do a specific thing, right? When you have a boss, or however nice or lovely your boss may be, you're still serving that boss, right? And for me, I was always like, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? And sometimes, because of a thousand different reasons, or etc., or corporate being corporate, you can't necessarily do things your way because of XYZ, right? So for me, I was always like, okay, well, my goal, my understanding of success is having this level of freedom to allow me to be in a position where if I don't feel like recording a podcast today, I don't have to, right? Like if I woke up and went, actually, that idea of podcasting, not going to happen today, sorry. And then, but sometimes you still have to do it, right? Or it's still better to do it and push it forwards. But it's about understanding what your level of success is. And again, it's going back to, don't compare yourself to anyone else's level of success, or don't compare yourself to anyone else's, because everyone else's has a different concept. And also your concept of success, in my experience anyway, will change as you grow and will change as you get older. It will be, oh, now I want this. Or, say for example, you wanted the house. Actually, you'll go, especially when you achieve the house, you're like, actually, this isn't that all it's cracked up to be, perhaps. It may be. I don't know. I don't own a massive house. So, I don't know. But for me, it's like, I've seen it as I set goals, and as I've started to achieve those goals, the goals change, and that concept of perfection changes as well. Have you found the same, or is it like, am I just alone in this concept?
No, I think don't compare yourself. I agree. It's don't compare yourself to beat yourself up. Compare yourself to inspire yourself, to see what other people have done, to see what other people have achieved. And you're right, there's some people in big houses that actually are in debt, that on the outside look to be successful. To me, success is personal success. Success is seeing someone you've worked with get a promotion and be able to go home and tell the husband, wife that they've done something brilliant that day and they've earned more money for their family. My satisfaction, and it's that conversation about what excites you personally, what does it for you. If buying a big house does it for you, great, because it gives you something to go for and to aim for. What does it for me is seeing somebody else do brilliantly, is having somebody else phone me up and say, do you remember that conversation you had with me? Well, that really helped me. And actually, I've gone on to bigger and better things because I did decide maybe that environment wasn't right for me. So first, work out what does it for you. And that can be really hard sometimes. I mean, when you're young, quite clearly, when I first got my job, it was, I want to earn some money. And I want to earn some money because I want to buy handbags and go out at the weekend. I mean, it was as simple as that. But by having that, it made me work really hard. It made me do overtime. It made me want a promotion. It made me decide to learn off people and to try and gain additional skills. as time went on, my reason for doing what I did changed, but it was the same really, because I still had a goal and an ambition. So the goal and ambition changed, but it was the thing that drove me on. Even the thing that drove me on to decide to change career, because I woke up and decided, a bit like you in a way, I wanted to be in a different environment. I wanted to be in a situation where I had personal responsibility and had to get up and get out there to make a living. I wanted to push myself. You know, my other environment had become a bit safe for me. I wanted to do something different and stretch myself in a different way. So yeah, goals and ambitions change, but that's okay, as long as the goal and ambition drives you on to be the best you can be in what you're doing. And if it doesn't, it's not the right goal or ambition, is it? If it doesn't get you out of bed in the morning, then you're not striving for the right thing.
Yeah, it should be that kick up the arse. It should be the, okay, I need to do this now because my goal is to do this, right? It should be, right, I've achieved this, right? But now I'm going to achieve this, right? So how are you going to get from point A to point B? Okay, well, if you don't put B further enough ahead, you're never going to feel a need to strive and continue to grow and continue to push to be able to actually get to point B, because point B was comfortable, point B was easy to get to, you know. And I think for me it's important to, because there's a lot of like debates around like where you should set your goals and how you should set your goals, and some people say you should set them miles and miles and miles away and it's impossible that you could even get them. But the point is, the reason, and I agree with that point, the reason why I'm mentioning it is because let's say, right, you put it really, really, really far away and then you only get halfway there, okay? Is that going to be further than if you went, I'm going to do it safe and actually hit the goal? It doesn't actually matter whether you hit the goal or not. The goal is just this perceived want to be somewhere, or this perceived want to earn an amount of money, or a perceived want to do something. What it would do is it would just, every day you'd be like, right, okay, so I've got to get over there. Okay, so if you, let's say you wanted to turn over 20 million, right? I'll use a big number, right? What happens if you turn over 10 million? You've still turned over 10 million, right? That's still a lot better than, only aiming for 5.
That's the small wins bit. That's the small wins that build momentum. And you could have a long-term goal. Businesses have long-term goals, don't they? They have strategies, they have ambitions. But within that are loads of little levers, loads of little successes that get you there, just as you described. And I prefer them, to be honest, because I want to feel good by the minute, by the hour, by the day. I don't want to wait to feel good. And you know what? When you get your 20 million, what do you want next? Because when you... well, exactly.
Keep going. Just keep going. Sky's the limit,
20 wasn't really it, was it?
No.
It was just an arbitrary...
Yeah, it was an arbitrary number. And this is what I mean by an arbitrary number. So it doesn't matter what the goal is. It doesn't matter what it is, because it's arbitrary anyway. Because when you hit that, you'll want to go double again, or so on. You want to keep pushing. And that's why I think it's good to understand, firstly, where you are, but then also where you want to be, right? Because they're going to change, they're going to adapt. Because as you move closer to where you want to be, where you will want to be then will be further along the road, right, as well, right? Because you're going to constantly want to develop and you'll constantly want to get that job fulfillment. And what we're talking about here is like job fulfillment and why you do what you do, right? That's what we're talking about here, basically, in the simple answer. I mean, for me, that was kind of everything I wanted to cover today, mostly. I mean, I like to add on the end of the podcast just before we wrap up. I mean, do you have any topics or anything that you want to throw in, or do you want to ask me a question specifically? Because I know I've had interviews where I'm like, come on, ask me, come on, ask me, give me a chance to ask a question. Is there anything that you specifically want to ask me specifically?
I think because I am in that change period, and I think you've been something similar. What was I guess for you, I know now that I want to take a different path, and I'm starting to formulate what that would look like, but I still struggle to make it solid. Do you know what I mean? To make it a reality. I've got loads of ambition now and loads of thoughts and ideas. How did you channel it? How did you bring it all together?
I mean, by no means am I an expert on channeling it, because I still do the same thing. I have loads of these ideas, loads of these things, and then it doesn't end up happening, or it does, or it doesn't. But I think the main thing that allows me to like actually do it. It's just simply executing on it. I mean, there's a concept in your brain where if you act within like 4 or 5 seconds, your brain won't have time to actually realize what's happening, right? Like if you're going to get in a cold shower, act within the first 3 seconds, and your brain won't go, oh, but that's cold, right? Or if you're going to like go and ask a girl out or a guy out or etc., then just go and do it, right? Because don't give your brain the chance to be like, oh, but what if, right? Because your brain's job is to keep you alive, right? So it's always going to be like, no, stay safe, no, stay safe, no, we're gonna stay safe because we know we survive if we do these things, right? If we do this thing, we have no idea if we're going to survive or not, right? In reality, worst thing that's probably going to happen in most of the concepts that you're thinking of here is you're going to get a bit embarrassed. That's about it. You're maybe a bit egg on your face, maybe you look a bit like a tit. That's about it. That's the worst that's possibly going to happen. And then all you do is you try again, right? It's like anything. You try again. But so, I mean, there's no simple answer there but that's why I just say just act, right? Because people get rewarded when they act. People get rewarded when they're in a position where they can act on those things, right? If you don't act, you're not able to flourish from whatever it is, right? If I didn't say last year, right, I'm going to start a podcast, at that point I wasn't very good at podcasting at all, right? But as I've done it more, I've developed, I've got better at interviewing, I've got better at doing podcasts, I've got better at being in the position where I can do podcasts. So now I'm in a position where I took an initial idea, I acted on it, and it doesn't matter if I fall on my face the first 5 times. Because I'm going to keep going until I don't fall on my face. And it was the same with when I went full time. It was the same with when I've made any decision related to business. It's, okay, we're going to make this decision. We're going to say in the next 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, if we don't see a large improvement, then let's go back to the drawing board and see what we can do better next time. And if that means I have to go get a retail job again, fine. Okay, fine. Right, I'll get another retail job for another year and we'll try again. Right? There's no shame in doing that. What happens and what the issue sometimes is some people say, or some people go and they say, I'm going to do this, but then they don't for whatever reason. And then they're always asked, what if I did that? What if I made that decision? What if I went full time? What if I followed my dreams, right? And I know Gary Vaynerchuk talks about this a lot. It's like in your 20s, do it. Because it's the best time to do it because in most cases, you don't have much responsibility in regards to what you actually have to pay for. You, in most cases, don't have an actual family you need to provide for, right? So you don't have a child, etc., etc., etc. So what's the worst thing that's going to happen is you run out of money, really badly, you go bankrupt, okay, or you're in a position where you have to go get a job again, and then you have to move back in with your parents. Okay, the only person you're disappointing is your perceived level of success yourself, right? Maybe you jumped too soon. Maybe you weren't good enough, so to speak. Maybe you weren't strong enough in the respect to what that service was or what the business was, and etc. Okay, fine. Analyze why it failed. Analyze what happened, and then go again, and keep going until you're successful. Simple as that. I don't know whether that answers your question, but
because one of the things somebody else said to me is just make a start. Just make a start. Just do it.
The hardest step is always the first.
Yeah, just do it. Just make a start. And I go back to what you said about, maybe do it in your 20s. Do it whenever. I mean, I'm 50 now, and actually, I think.
I'll don't get me wrong. It doesn't mean that you have to do it in your 20s, right? Like you can do it as long as you do it, as long as you act, right? You don't have to do it then. It's not like a catch-all rule. You have to do it in your 20s,
No, it's that. It's just don't let anything stop you. Don't let your age, your circumstance, your perceived value, don't let it stop you. Because I would probably say I'm doing it now. I'm 50 because I didn't make a start when I could have done, because I allowed things to stop me. So don't let that happen. Make a start. Make a change.
Absolutely. For those people who may be interested in seeing some of your photography perhaps, or just want to have a chat and see sort of, what advice you could give them off the record specifically, or, in DMs, etc., where's best for people to reach out to you?
Probably via Instagram, to be honest. I'm on there constantly. I don't know if you can put something out there with my Instagram.
I'll drop it in the description for those who are interested.
Is that the terminology? We'll drop it on there. I'm going to drop it on there. Yeah, probably via Instagram at the moment. That'd be lovely, that'd be superb. I would love actually to make new contacts, which is why I'm here today with you. New contacts.
Absolutely. Thank you ever so much for your time. It was
Thank
great.
you.
And yeah, any final thoughts, final words?
No, I think we both summed it up. I think the key phrase is make a start. Just flip and do it.
Thank you so much for joining me once again, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you did enjoy that interview with myself and Michelle, and we'll be definitely bringing Michelle back on at some point when is relevant. But yeah, hope you did take some value from it. Thanks you so much for joining me once again. If you did enjoy this video or this podcast and would like to see more like it, then make sure to be subscribed to the channel. I'd love to hear anything in the comments section down below, and I'll see you very, very soon.